These are your evening headlines for January 6, 2026, right here on BYU-Idaho Radio. Thanks for joining me today. I'm Kimber Pierce. From residential expansion to growth at the airport, Mayor Rebecca Casper is proud of the development of Idaho Falls under her 3 terms. One of the projects she finds the most pride in is the installation of fiber optic cables across the city, allowing for high-speed internet.
We have managed to put the infrastructure in place, and we make that available to private sector entities that want to provide service, but they don't have to manage the hardware, right? We've created the highway, and we invite people to drive on it.
This allows the fiber optics to be owned and maintained by the city, while internet is provided through the private sector. As her last term comes to a close, she reflected on her work done and why the people of Idaho Falls have voted her into office.
I'd like to think, I'll say it that way, that I have been able to demonstrate when I get in front of people and talk to them, sincerity and a willingness to apply an intelligent approach to things.
Looking toward the future, there are things Mayor Casper will miss when she is out of office, and she got a little emotional as she told us what she'll miss most.
I actually like leaving things a little better than we found them, and I'm going to miss being needed to help solve those problems. A friend of mine said, "Oh, you let somebody else do that, and why don't you just concentrate on the fact that you know who to call if your road doesn't get plowed in time." So I hope I don't become a complainer, but I am going to miss not being a problem solver.
Mayor Casper told us a lot more, and you can listen to our full interview with Mayor Casper on our podcast feed. Just follow BYU-Idaho Radio on your favorite podcast app. Idaho lawmakers who want to tackle the housing affordability issue in the 2026 session could look at an innovative way to get more people in their own homes. Public News Service reports the Panhandle Affordability Housing Alliance, or PAHA, is developing a solution in North Idaho that's designed to keep middle-class workers in communities where they're being pushed out due to high prices. PAHA's Miracle on Britain project in Post Falls includes 28 homes that are deed restricted to keep them affordable. Maggie Lyons, executive director for PAHA, says this model is replicable and state lawmakers could help by passing a new tax credit.
It would be a state tax credit for any taxpayer, not just builders and developers, but for any taxpayer who chooses to sell a home substantially below market. That is a deed-restricted resale formula that always keeps that home in a price range affordable over time by middle-income wage earners.
Lyons says housing is like a slow-swinging wrecking ball that is ruining local communities and economies by pushing out workers. The Idaho legislative session begins next Monday. Miracle on Britain is one of the first projects of its kind in the country. Lyons says a diverse group of buyers have purchased homes in the neighborhood, including nurses, teachers, welders, and electricians. She notes that these are professions with good wages but not enough to buy a home, with costs continuing to rise in Kootenai County. Her organization partnered with the University of Idaho to collect data.
70% want home ownership, and right now in Kootenai County, less than 20% can afford to buy a home. So PAHA's battle cry basically became, we refuse to accept that only the wealthy can afford to buy a home in Kootenai County.
Lyons says state policymakers need to take the long view on housing.
The state is called to lead, and you do not lead by looking only a year ahead or 2 years. You lead by understanding what are the trends, what does the data tell us, and how do we best formulate policy to respond to what we know are the longer-term needs of the citizenry.
You can learn more about the project at pahaid.org. After a crash in Owyhee County Monday afternoon, a teenage driver was flown to the hospital. The two-vehicle crash happened just before noon close to milepost 64 on State Highway 51 in Bruno, about 63 miles southeast of Boise. According to EastIdahoNews.com, the teen driving a Honda ATV hit a 2026 Ford Explorer being driven by a 63-year-old man from Boise. The teen driver was not wearing a helmet and was taken to a local hospital by helicopter. The teen's condition has not been released. These have been your BYU-Idaho Radio evening headlines for January 6, 2026. Thanks for tuning in. More news, interviews, and great content are available on our podcast feed. Search for BYU-Idaho Radio on your favorite podcast apps. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, and more. For BYU-Idaho Radio, I'm Kimber Pierce.